Hey, what's up, guys? It's Pete here from mixbetternow.com. Happy Cinco De Mayo. And today I want to talk about mixing background vocals in a pop rock track. But before I do that, please do me a favor. Please hit subscribe. Please hit like. And please sign up for the email list where we have lots of free stuff for you, like multi-track sessions, drum samples, impulse responses, all kinds of good stuff. So please check it out. All right, I got a session pulled open here. We got some vocals pulled up. It's a pop rock tune, and it sounds like this. Check it out.
Sitting on the couch and I'm flipping channels. Reality TV's got me so far away. What happened to the old days of fiction? I pick up my keys and then I'll drift away. And I'll try, I just try. Slip into.
All right, so let's talk about background vocals. Background vocals are always a little bit of a challenge. They can be problematic, but most of the time, if you know how to do it, it can be super fun to mix. The idea with background vocals or harmony vocals or stack vocals is we want to treat them in a way that they don't compete with the lead vocal and they're not getting in the way of any of the other instrumentation in the mix. The idea is we just kind of want to gently fold them and gently tuck them underneath the lead vocals. So there's some various methods that we could do to kind of massage them in and make them sit where we want them to. In this track, there was only one harmony that I was given. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. So we had one harmony track, and often when I'm given one track of something in a session, I like to duplicate it. So what I did was I made a double of the track and I pulled one hard left and right. So let me just solo this up and I'll show you what our harmony sounds like. Here is our harmony.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Now just for fun, I'll play the lead for you and you could hear that.
What happened to the old days of fiction? I pick up my keys and then I'll drift away.
So as you can obviously hear, the lead vocal sounds nice and full and lush, and I like to make lead vocals sound like you're basically sitting in the room listening to the singer sing, or you're in the audience at a show listening to somebody sing. But that is not always the case with background vocals. Background vocals, like I said, we want to fold them under, so we're going to do some unconventional things to get them to work. Let me show you what I did here. I'm doing a couple things. First thing I'm doing is throughout this whole mix, I'm using the Slate Digital VCC. We're going to leave this alone just because it's on everything. I'm using the trim tool here for a little bit of gain staging purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solo this one. I'm going to pull it up the center so we can hear it, and instead of dealing with one left and right. So what I did next was I dragged in a tape emulation. This is the UAD oxide tape. I just want to send it to a little bit of tape. Want to give it a little bit of tape saturation, a little bit of tape compression. Not doing anything crazy. Just want to have it hit some tape. The next thing we're doing is we're EQing quite a bit, and we're getting rid of a lot of the low end stuff, pulling out a lot of the low mids. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't want it to compete with other low end information in our mix, like the lead vocals, kick drum, bass, guitars, things like that. I'm high pressing, pretty aggressively, high passing the 280 hertz. 18 dB per octave slope. I usually use around 12, but we're kind of getting a little bit more aggressive with this. I'm pulling out some 460 and I'm pulling out some 880. So, getting rid of a little bit of that mud and a little bit of that teeny bit of that mid-range. Tell you what, we will pull this in and out. Here it is bypassed on and off.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So you can really hear that. I'm just going to bypass the effects for now. We'll get to those in a minute. But if I take the compression off too, it sounds like this.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So on its own, it really doesn't sound that great. It sounds thin. It doesn't sound, nice and lush. But that's okay because it doesn't matter what this sounds like in solo because we're not listening in solo. It matters what it sounds like in the context of the mix, just like anything else. So that's what I'm doing on the initial EQ. Let me bypass these. The next thing I have going on is I am using RVox from Waves, doing some compression. Now, RVox is like a combination of a compressor and a limiter. You can't really dial in specific things like attack and release and ratio, but you can control your threshold. We're doing about 6 dB of compression here.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Maybe a little bit less, but the reason that I'm using RVox in this situation is because RVox just has a tone to it. It has a sound. It really kind of pushes the vocal forward. I'm going to bypass it in and out, and you can hear what I mean.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
It's on.
And I'll drive.
Off.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So RVox is adding just a really cool kind of punchy in-your-face thing. With the compression on these background vocals, I'm not going to be looking at any metering. I'm not really going to be worrying about, I'm compressing 3 dB here, I'm compressing 7 dB on the peaks. I really don't care. The compression for me on background vocals tends to be more of a feel-oriented thing. I want to feel the compression in a way that I really want the compressors to control the background vocals, and I want them to sit, above the floor and below the ceiling where a compressor, where the vocal will live in between a compressor. Now I'm compressing again here. I'm using a channel strip, so we're doing a little bit of compression. We're doing a little bit of EQ. This is the EMI TG12345 from Waves. It's an emulation of the solid state console that I believe was made after the Red console. Sounds really awesome. We can set on our routing here, we can pick which order we want to, if we want to EQ before we compress or vice versa, if we want to compress before we EQ. And here I am EQing before we go into the compressor. On the EQ here, we got a shelf. I think it's a 5K shelf, just doing like 1.5 dB, boosting a little 1.6K at 3 dB. And boosting the drive about 3, and we're compressing, so it sounds like this in and out.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So it's just for a little bit more sculpting and a little bit more control, if you will. Now, both of these are going to an auxiliary send. I have, left and right going to a harmony bus or, a background vocal bus, whatever you want to call it. I'm doing a few more things here. We're doing some more EQing. I like to do a lot of this stuff in stages. And, if you've watched any of my other videos or if you know how I mix, I tend to, instead of doing massive broad strokes with like one plugin, like one EQ or one compressor, I will do multiple small moves throughout the course, throughout the chain. Like on the track, I might EQ and compress one time, and then on the bus, I might EQ and compress again, for all different reasons. Mainly being is that I don't want any one plugin working super hard unless it's a sound that I want and it's an effect that I want. So again, we're EQing. We're high passing. Again, we are pulling out some 258, some 450. Pulling out some 700, we're boosting some 5K with a bell, and then we are boosting 8K with a shelf, with a high shelf. So that's giving us some more some more EQ. Then I'm EQing again with a Moog EQ2. I'm boosting some 650, was it 1.5? Yeah, 1.5 dB. Boosting some 2.5K, 1.5 dB, and then I'm doing a 3 dB boost of 10K with the airband, another high shelf. Then we're compressing again, going into an LA2A. Just want to smooth this, smooth the two tracks together. This will just kind of give it another little bit of a glue stage. I don't know. Let's see what we're knocking off here.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Yeah, it's not really pushing it with the one vocal in there. But if I bring this out, bring this over here. Let's see how much we're getting.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Yeah, it's really nothing crazy. We're just getting the needle moving a little bit. And then lastly, we're using the Sound Toys Radiator, which is an Altec 1567 mic pre emulation. Harder you drive it, the more kind of character you get out of the plugin. This is a really cool thing, emulating the transformers and stuff like that. It's got a bass and a treble knob on it, which is always cool. It's got a mix knob, which is super cool. Mix knob, we have all the way dialed wet. So if I pull the bus effects off, or the bus treatment, we're going to hear the vocal sound about as raw as it sounds, and it's like this.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So you could tell by that there's quite a bit of work to be done, right? It's a bit muddy. It wasn't recorded amazingly well. Like I said, this is how it got sent to me, so we got to work with it, right? So I'm gonna bring everything in, including the effects, and I'll show you what I do. So that was everything off. Play it one more time.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Now let's turn everything back on. I'm just going to start with the channels.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Now it's still not all the way there, okay? Because if I bring in the lead vocal and I listen to that, I'm going to hear that I just want a little bit more brightness and I want it thinned out a little bit more. So here's the lead.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Because I still can't really make out what he's saying. I mean, I know he's saying and I'll drive, but it's not as clear as I want it, especially if I pull it out in the context of the mix. Here it is in the context of the mix.
And I'll drive. I just drive.
So that's exactly why I put some more processing on the bus here. Let's bring our bus processing in. Here's our two EQs, our compressor, and our harmonic mic pre-emulation. It's going to sound like this with the lead vocal now.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
So now we can really, really, really hear the enunciation. We can make out what the vocal is, and it's really being tucked in and folded under very nicely. Let me show you what I'm doing effects-wise. The first thing up is I'm using a very short, small room.
And I'll drive.
Sorry, let me turn the lead vocal off.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Then I brought in an Echoplex for a little bit of delay.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
Then we're setting it to a Lexicon 224 for a little bit of reverb.
And I'll drive, and I'll drive.
And with all of that said and done, it's going to sound like this in the mix.
And I'll drive. I just drive.
And one more time, I'll bypass everything out, do a little before and after. It's a lot of stuff to bypass. So here's with nothing.
And I'll try. I just try.
All right, and I'll loop it. I'll bring the stuff back in, and you'll really hear it pop, come to life, and really punch through the mix.
And I'll try. I just try. And I'll try. I just try. And I'll try.
Very, very cool. All right, so that is mixing background vocals in a pop rock tune. Some of the ways that I like to do it. Obviously, there are no rules. If it sounds good, it is good. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try things. But definitely feel free to copy some of my settings, some of my EQ moves or my compressor moves or effects or anything like that. This is all for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, my name is Pete from mixbetternow.com. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and please hit subscribe. Please hit like and sign up for the email list. Happy Cinco de Mayo, and I will catch you guys next time. Have a great day.